Hey, Foot Clan, we love having great sponsors support this show, but in order to do that, we need your help. So please go to podsurvey.com/footballers, take a super quick anonymous survey, and that will help us get to know you a little better. That way we can show sponsors just how great our Foot Clan is. And even if you've taken the show's podcast survey before, the current one is new and different, and I'd really love you guys to take it one more time for us. We do this once a year. It takes 5 minutes. So once you've completed the survey, you can enter to win a $100 gift card. So go to podsurvey.com/footballers. podsurvey.com/footballers.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from the FantasyJocks.com studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
We're back! We're back in a new building.
I'm very discombobulated.
It's a great time to be alive,
Are you
America.
telling me, Mike, are you telling me the routine of 350 plus shows in the old survey, all right, in the old studio has you a little disoriented?
Yeah, it's very bizarre. I mean, things sound slightly different. Things look extremely different.
Well, you are an audio engineer. You're a little more sensitive.
I'm a very sensitive man.
You're a sensitive man. Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, Mike Wright, back again and debuting our new studio, which for most of you as listeners, you're probably not going to notice the difference.
But welcome.
Welcome in. This is a great show. I'm telling you right now, I love this show. This is the Overreaction episode. Each of us have selected 3 guys that we think people will overreact to either positively or negatively heading into the 2017 fantasy football draft, and these are guys that you can take advantage of that overreaction with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes complete sense.
Yes. People are going to freak out because people always freak out. Jason, you freak out all the time.
It's a daily occurrence, but one of the things I do in fantasy football is I try to avoid the freak out, and really it's more what you're saying, not so much, hey, just avoid overreacting, but take advantage of the clear overreactions that are coming in fantasy football. That's a great way to just get free value.
Absolutely, and we have we have some news that broke over the last few days, so we're going to get into the news as well. Before we jump into the overreaction selections that we've picked, I want to let you know about some articles that just went up on the website, thefantasyfootballers.com. The Reception Perception article,
begun.
The first one by Matt Harmon is up on the website exclusively at thefantasyfootballers.com. This one's on Corey Davis, upcoming rookie wide receiver Corey Davis. Great article. You have to check that out. All of the reception perception data and the charting of the top 50 wide receivers is going to be in our Ultimate Draft Kit this year. Just another additional feature we've added to the Ultimate Draft Kit that you can find at ultimatedraftkit.com. We also have a Makeup or Breakup article by Nick Martinez on Todd Gurley, who I may or may not talk about today.
Yeah, we will both make up and break up in this studio with Todd Gurley.
Yeah, and then the nice thing about the Overreaction episode is after we give our takes, I want the other 2 gentlemen in the room to give their, do you agree, do you disagree, are you on board with that opinion? Should be fun. You looking forward to it, Mike?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You okay over there?
Yeah.
You're much farther away from me than we.
I know, that's what I'm saying. It's a little bit weird. We'll have to get used to it, but we'll be on track here and momentarily.
You look good. The beard looks good today.
Always.
All right, if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at the FF Ballers. Like I said, the website's thefantasyfootballers.com. Let's get into the quick question of the day. It's a Matt Forte Bilal Pal question from Veras in San Francisco. Yeah, blah, blah. What do you think about Matt Forte? That's the question. He had one of his worst seasons. He finished as the RB21, but now he's 31 years old. He pretty much was playing through injury from week 13 on, but look, is he a back-end RB1? Is he a back-end RB2? What is this guy?
He is tough, man. It's going to be an enigma because when I saw this question, I was like, Matt Forte, he was solid before he went down with the injury, but I mean, he was really all over the place. I mean, he came out just on fire, had a couple games where he went down, then he just killed it, and then disappeared again. I mean, he was really all over the place. Meanwhile, once Forte really win out and Bilal Powell got his shot, I mean, he shined as Powell continues to do whenever he is given an opportunity. So I have Matt Forte still. I think he's got a little bit left. I think he's got enough left for fantasy purposes. I would not consider him a running back 1, but I got him, with that good crop of 2s. It's fine with me.
Yeah, for me, I like his value right now. I think he's actually, and I don't expect this to hold true come around to draft season, but these super early drafts where people are trying to, be a little too smart, Bilal Powell is being drafted ahead of Matt Forte.
Oh, wow.
Matt Forte is in the 7th round, and so I think that's great value to start, and hopefully Bilal Powell will come around all the way, into the normal August draft season, in which case you might be able to take both of those guys because the Jets as a fantasy scoring.
Are you going to want to commit your team to the Jets running back?
Well, I think if you just commit 2 spots over the course of the year, if you had both of those guys and you played, Bilal Powell or Matt Forte, they were the 12th best team. So you have, basically an RB1 team between those 2 guys. So when you're talking about getting those in the 6th, the 7th round, I think that's really nice depth on your roster.
The thing about Forte, when you're looking back at his game log, where he did not perform well is, well, you should have seen it coming. I mean, Kansas City Chiefs, the Seahawks, Arizona. Meanwhile, his games against the Cleveland Browns, the Dolphins, the Rams, he performed at a very high level. I mean, talk about the ultimate matchup litmus test here.
I think there's just so many question marks. That's why his ADP is so far down, is because you just don't know what that offense is going to look like. Decker's going to be back. What's the quarterback situation going to be in New York? Is this team – I mean, you say he's all over the map. The team was all over the map last year. And will Brandon Marshall be cut? Will he be back? I think there are question marks. I don't think he should be back in the 7th round. I don't know how I'd feel about it.
No, he should.
For our
Let's leave him there.
All right, let's jump into the news.
News and notes from around the league.
All right, let's start with the trade that took place. I think it sounds more important than it is. That's my opinion.
Adam Gase, bro.
The Dolphins and Adam Gase have acquired tight end Julius Thomas from the Jaguars for a late-round pick. It looks like that's a 7th rounder. He had played and has played with Adam Gase in Denver.
He was very good in Denver, and he's been talking about how he wanted to reunite with Adam Gase. And I wish I don't have his cell phone number, because I would say you also need to reunite then with old Peyton Manning, because that was probably more important than Adam Gase.
I was going to say, how can he reunite? Can Allen Robinson reunite with Blake Bortles? It didn't happen last year. I don't know how good Julius Thomas is at catching uncatchable passes, but if the offense improves, I mean, I don't know.
It at least is interesting that
Yes.
where now Julius Thomas is back on the radar, because he was left for dead for fantasy purposes when he was in Jacksonville. You didn't even consider it. Well, I didn't. Me personally, I didn't even consider drafting him. Now Julius Thomas.
You had hope. You had hope for
Yes,
Jordan Cameron last
I did.
year because of Adam Gase. Now you put a better tight end in that spot.
Yeah, and what was the 20-plus touchdowns? I mean, with Manning, he was basically a touchdown a game. Now, I don't expect that kind of a pace, but at least we have another late-round flyer that we can barf all over ourselves when we draft him.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where he goes. Let's move on. Peter King said he wouldn't be shocked if Jay Cutler ended up with the Cardinals.
Smoking Jay Cuddy.
I'm sorry, Peter King.
What are you doing, man?
Every offseason, he's got like 3 or 4 of these just it's like a dartboard, man.
I always remember the story of, like, with Peter King, you can't take it serious. And the worst one that he ever said was like 4 or 5 years ago when he called for double-digit touchdowns from little Darren Sproles with the Saints.
And then he was right.
And I was like, oh, all right.
I'm pretty
good
sure
job,
pretty sure he picked the Saints to win it all the year they did as well.
Yeah, so
but there are someone
if he's giving Saints info, it's really solid.
Right.
But it's just
It makes here's the deal. It makes
irrelevant
sense.
for fantasy.
It is irrelevant for fantasy. For the NFL, it makes complete sense. For the Cardinals, the only person it doesn't make sense for is Jay Cutler, who is not going to take backup money, and the Cardinals aren't going to pay for 2 starting quarterbacks. So, as a Cardinals fan, I'm all about it. I would love to have Smokin' Jay Cuddy as opposed to Drew Stanton.
Yeah.
I think the only person it doesn't make sense for is just Jay Cutler's bank account.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean him as a person. I think if there's a team fit.
Fair.
But he's not going to take that backup money. He's going to go get that Jets started money.
All right, report on Bengals.com believes Giovanni Bernard, who had an ACL tear, will avoid the PUP to start the season.
A mysterious ACL tear as well.
This is good news for Andy Dalton and the Bengals offense.
Agreed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they got to get I think we have seen now, as much as I love Jeremy Hill and I will forever have a special place in my heart for Jeremy Hill, Hill needs Gio Bernard, and the Bengals need Gio.
We'll talk about that offense in a little bit. Hint, hint. The Browns do not plan to franchise tag Terrell Pryor. Jason, I almost made you a dynasty trade offer this morning.
I assume it was for Terrell Pryor.
It was actually yesterday. I thought about offering you Jamison,
let's make a trade right here.
Jamison Crowder for Terrell Pryor, and I didn't offer it. But I was curious what your reaction would have been. I don't know where Pryor is going to be or how he's going to play.
That is an interesting.
It was a very interesting.
That is very interesting.
I don't know.
I would probably have held off for a little bit because the offseason moves are going to change the opportunities.
It could go both directions, though.
For both players. It really could go both directions. For me, I would
could see
rather
Pryor's value going down and Jamison Crowder's value going up.
Absolutely.
I don't know if I see it going the other way.
Well, I could see it going the other way a little bit. I mean, if there was a quarterback that's brought in, and but for a trade like this is where it's not always which player's better. It's also the fit for the team.
Yeah.
So for my team, I'd rather have the big blow up, top 10
1,000-yard season
potential.
Argumentative wide receiver.
Right. I want to get a guy that does not get along with his locker
they don't
room.
like him.
All right, Amir Abdullah remains on track for OTAs. How in the world do you diagnose the running back situation in Detroit?
Oh, this is an easy one for me to diagnose. I really believe it, and it's.
You go with the wide receiver?
I mean, they do not have
which wide receiver running back?
Golden Tate.
They don't have a good running team, scheme, line, and even though I think Amir Abdullah and Theo Riddick are both talented, when it comes to fantasy, I'm only looking for PPR pass catcher out of that offense. That's how I view it.
Yeah, I agree. I've been following all this Kirk Cousins news. It seems like Kirk is willing to just play one more year and then use all that leverage he has in the very rarely used third franchise tag quarterback situation.
No.
They won't tag him. I think he's going to be
You need to sign a long-term deal with the Redskins, Kirk.
You think that?
I really do. I do.
Why? Because they're losing the wide receivers? Or
no, because I don't want him to go to the Niners.
Oh.
Be in the NFC West. And I feel like it's just setting up.
Well, that's a very biased opinion you have.
Yes, it is.
All right, that does it for the news. We're going to jump into the overreactions. I'm very excited about this. I guess Jason's going to kick this off. Let's do it.
I'm not going to do what you all think I'm going to do, which is just flip out.
All right. So the overreaction episode.
What, that wasn't a Michael Keaton moment?
I missed it. The overreaction episode, one of the easier things to do is look at who was unbelievably great last year, who had a career year, who had career highs across the board.
You're talking about me, aren't you?
Oh, man, and I think that people are going to make a mistake. They're going to take you too high. So, yes, I'm talking about you. No, and people aren't going to like it. People didn't like it when I basically said the same thing last year on Cam Newton, but who was right? So, Matt Ryan, look.
You and Peter King.
I like you, Matt Ryan. We called for you in our Ultimate Draft Kit last year. You were our highest-rated breakout, sleeper. So this is great. We really appreciate what you did for fantasy owners this past year. But in Matt Ryan's
giving him a
career,
2-week notice?
In Matt Ryan's career, he has averaged 26.7 touchdowns. And that's including last year in his career average, 26.7, which is 12 less than he threw. He threw 38 touchdowns last year. Now he loses Kyle Shanahan. His quarterback coach is gone. A change at the offense. Why is he going to – here's what he had. He had a career low in interceptions, career high in yards, career high in touchdowns, and people are going to draft him as like the fourth quarterback. They're going to expect a slight regression, but they're basically going to be saying Matt Ryan is going to be this top quarterback on a super high-powered offense, and here's what you're actually going to get next year. You're going to get a mistake in the 4th round. That's what you're going to get because you're going to give up a high-quality running back or wide receiver you could have taken there, and the difference between Matt Ryan and, way later in the draft, an Andy Dalton or someone, give me that all day.
I really can't disagree with you because the precedent has been set from years and years of quarterback play, whether it's Matthew Stafford after a great year, Cam Newton after a great year. We kept using this
Andrew Luck.
Yeah, we kept using this language about, okay, has Cam Newton actually leveled up after his career year? Well, it wasn't the case for Cam Newton. And I think Matt Ryan will be a good quarterback next year. But he's not going to be a 4th-round fantasy quarterback.
My point is that
no
even
one's
if
a
he,
4th round.
right, even if he has leveled up and he is so much better than his average, let's say he goes to his 2nd highest year throwing the touchdowns ever,
Throwing the touchdowns.
which was 32. That was his previous career high, 32.
Hey, fellas.
And he threw
How about we
38.
throw some of the touchdowns?
So he's going to
All
level
right,
up
all right.
to a lower level.
I'm going to jump in.
I still like Matt Ryan. I think that the offense will remain high-powered. They have the weapons there are unbelievable. And while I agree with you, I would not draft Matt Ryan in the 4th round because I'm likely not drafting Aaron Rodgers in the 4th round. But let's say you're in a league where they actually do wait on quarterback, and you're coming up here. It's the 8th or the 9th round, and 3 quarterbacks have gone off the board. You're saying you wouldn't take Matt Ryan in that situation?
If I
I'd
can
take
get
him in
Matt
a
Ryan,
heartbeat.
if I can get Matt Ryan in the 9th round, absolutely I'm taking him. There's still a good offense. He's still a good quarterback. I'm not saying that he's bad in any way. I'm saying that the year we got statistically is not going to repeat itself.
Yeah, and I agree that the most leagues, where you just kind of like what's the right word I'm thinking of, the common league. I can't think of the right word.
Average?
Yeah, an average league. Thank you. That was bizarre. But just in an average league where quarterbacks do go early, Matt Ryan will go early. But I'm
You think he
still
might
firmly
fall in the more
I'm firmly on board that if Matt Ryan, if you're in a more of a sharkish type of a league, I'm still great taking Matt Ryan as,
in the
as a
8th or
top
9th,
5 quarterback.
then I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I do not fear the offense regressing a ton. It's just a matter of I'm not going to pay the premium on Ryan when I can get a value on somebody else.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Before we move on to some more overreactions, I want to thank today's sponsor, BarkBox. BarkBox is a delivery of 4 to 6 natural treats for your pooch. Look, we got subscription boxes for us. Got to give that pooch some love. Get him or her some new stuff every single month, and that's what BarkBox is doing with Super.
What's your dog's name again? Darla?
Darla.
Yeah.
Darla, the old English bulldog. She loves BarkBox.
Yeah.
She loves those treats, and we're talking some of the best all-natural treats, innovative toys to match a dog's unique needs, including allergies. My dog's got the allergies. Look, it happens. Heavy chewer preferences. You can jump on BarkBox. You get to choose a plan, 1, 6, or 12 months. You can cancel at any time, and there's themes. Who doesn't love a theme? Who doesn't love a theme when you're getting your boxes? And this is the Scout's honor here. If your dog does not like something in the box, they will send you something you'll love for free because they're all about dog happiness and free shipping.
That's a good deal.
I like free shipping.
So for a free extra month of BarkBox, visit barkbox.com/footballers when you subscribe to a 6 or 12-month plan. That's barkbox.com/footballers.
All right, back into the overreactions, and I'm going to tell you a player I'm not subscribing to.
Oh, I see what you did there.
No subscription for me. I know there's going to be some disagreement here, Mike, but I'm going to make my case to you, and I'm going to tell people don't overreact on Keenan Allen, okay? And the angle I'm coming at is that I believe, from what I've seen in current ADP, where he's at the top of the 3rd round, I think people, as his health continues to improve this offseason, are going to jump all in on Keenan Allen. He's already at the top of the 3rd round. Let me explain something to listeners out there, and let me tell you why I have hesitation about Keenan Allen and why I will choose somebody else. The last time that he played a full game in the NFL.
A full game?
Yes.
Okay.
Was November of 2015, okay? When he plays again, it will have been just under 2 years since he played a full game in the NFL. I love him. I think he's a great player. I think the overreaction I've seen thus far is this expectation that he will take that 8-game run that he had back then and just that will repeat itself automatically. And I don't think it's going to happen. He had that 67 receptions in 8 games, and I know it was great. especially in PPR formats. And I think he'll be good. I think he'll be good enough. But here's some of the things that have changed, okay, in his situation since the last time he played a full game in the NFL. The team's drafted Melvin Gordon. Phillip Rivers is 2 years older than he was when he last played a full game with Keenan Allen. Tyrell Williams is in the offense, has broken out to some degree. Travis Benjamin has been signed. The team is now moving to Los Angeles. They have a new head coach. No more Mike McCoy. Anthony Lynn is now the head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers. This is too many variables for me. Too many variables, and then that doesn't even mention the variable of frequent injury. Okay, he's been hurt significantly twice. So I think he's going to end up in the second round in our fantasy drafts in August. I don't want him. I don't want to mess with that because I don't view him as this guy that's an automatic it's not Dez Bryant to me. I haven't seen it enough, and it's been 2 years since he's played. So that's I don't want people to overreact too far and just pass on him no matter what. But the value to me, I think he's going to end up a late second-round pick. I don't want to spend it.
Yeah, a second round I can see being questionable. But for me, if I'm in the third round, I love Keenan Allen. I think that he is a extremely skilled wide receiver and a skill set that does not rely on just, I'm not going to over-athlete you. I'm going to out-football you. That sounded like Jason when I was speaking.
Yeah,
there.
I'm going to be honest. It was your best point you've ever made. And I mean that from my heart.
But he's a great route runner. I think Phillip Rivers is a creature of habits, and once he gets his best wide receiver back, that he will go to him. I know that to me, the Tyrell Williams breakout helps Keenan Allen. I think that's spectacular. I like to have an auxiliary piece, an auxiliary deep threat who can get it done. I'm not worried at all about Travis Benjamin.
Can I put you on the spot?
Sure.
Are you taking Keenan Allen over Brandon Cooks? Are you taking him over Allen Robinson?
Are we if in our scoring format in a half-point PPR, I would take him over Brandon Cooks, and I would take him over Allen Robinson at this point.
Baldwin, Demaryius Thomas, Jarvis Landry.
Not Baldwin. I would take Baldwin over Keenan Allen. Demaryius Thomas is, if it's Tony Romo, then probably not over Thomas.
Jarvis Landry.
Ooh, Jarvis Landry is Keenan Allen. I mean, Jarvis Landry is East Coast.
Without
Keenan
a
Allen.
2-year lapse in playing.
Right, yeah.
I'm just curious. These are all guys going back behind Keenan Allen right now today.
Man,
I think that there's a chance that Keenan Allen ends up going ahead of like Devontae Adams and DeAndre Hopkins next year because they're right around the exact same draft spot.
Right.
So that's where it's a bit of an issue to me. If he's a value to me, if you get him at a value, you might get a 1, right? If he's healthy and everything works out. I worried about Phillip Rivers. He did not look himself at the end of the year. Oh, I didn't even mention.
Yeah, because he didn't have Keenan Allen.
Hunter Henry is another piece of the puzzle that wasn't there.
Well, Hunter Henry is just kind of siphoning off the Antonio Gates that was there.
Okay, all right.
As
Scientists.
Far as my opinion on your call on the Keenan Allen overreaction, my first instinct is going overreacting to what? He was injured. However, the point that you're making, I think, is 100% right. I am a risk-adverse type of fantasy selector in my draft. I prefer getting guys that I can take to the bank a little bit more.
Well, the overreaction is the 8 games, by the way. People have talked about those 8 games in 2015 for 2 years.
We're still
That's the
overreacting.
overreaction to me.
Yeah, we should have had this.
We're going Al
We should have had
Bundy.
him on the show last year, but yeah, exactly. He was so good at high school. That's Dorial Green Beckham. The amount of times that I hear like, "Oh, he's a 5-star recruit, one of the best recruits in the country." It's like it didn't happen. It didn't happen. Move on. Anyways, with Keenan Allen, I am not going to take Keenan Allen over most of those guys. I think you bring up all of the changes and the variables that say, yes, I mean, if you want that high-risk, high-reward player, then Keenan's for you. And I do agree there's enough of those type of fantasy players in every draft where he will never fall lower than the third round, and I'm not taking him in the third.
All right, you're up, Jay.
I'm up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mike's up.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to talk about a guy who his name rolled off your lips there in the middle of your bizarre Keenan Allen hatred.
All right.
Dez Bryant. Look, Dez Bryant, for some reason, is not being considered elite anymore. You have the top 3, right? You have Julio, Beckham, Antonio Brown. And then people are like, well, A.J. Green, these other guys, and then maybe Dez Bryant, because if you look right now on Fantasy Football Calculator, Dez Bryant is currently the 8th wide receiver off the board. He's going behind Mike Evans, A.J. Green, Jordy, and Hilton. Now, I'm okay if you want to make an argument for Evans, Green, or Jordy. Maybe you can argue with them in front of Dez. But T.Y. Hilton, I like T.Y. Hilton, but T.Y. Hilton is not Dez Bryant. T.Y. Hilton has a career high of 7 touchdowns.
How about Dez? How's Dez touchdowns?
Well, he went 3 seasons, 12, 13, 16. And last year, when Dez was considered a down year, he still had 8. He had more touchdowns than T.Y. Hilton in that season. And last year, he missed 4 games, right? You give him his average game, and his average factors in that terrible week 1. The second time they played the Giants, when he had negative points.
Right.
You give him just an average score, he's the wide receiver 10. And he was considered putrid by many people. We put up on an article, it was the draft or the report card on Dez Bryant, and we asked the Foot Clan, how did you feel about Dez? Everyone was crushing him. But like I said, if he just played all 16 games, wide receiver 10, 4 of his final 6 games, this includes the playoffs where you're playing tough competition, over 100 yards. He got it going with Dak Prescott. Do not write off Dez Bryant as an elite fantasy wide receiver. I think that would be a giant mistake.
All right.
Yeah, I agree with this one. He was on my short list of of players to consider for the overreaction because you nailed it when you talk about the pulse of the players. The pulse of the players was that Dez was down.
Yeah.
Dez is maybe fading. It's a running game system, and I think that's silly when you look at how he progressed last year into that role once he was past the injuries, how he was in the playoffs. I think Dez Bryant is going to be – I mean, you joked the first half of last year that he was the number 2 wide receiver on the team and that it was Beasles. That in 2017 –
Well, it was not a joke because Cole Beasley is the number 1 wide
in
receiver.
2017, it will be the Dez Bryant show,
right,
as it has been in many years.
I think it's interesting because I can kind of tell you why the pulse of the player is off for me on Dez Bryant. And it has to do with the fact that, I mean, maybe it's a bad comparison. I don't know. You'll probably think it is. But he's got a Sammy Watkins vibe to him right now where he's had some injury and you have now a team that is this is Zeke's team. This is not Tony Romo locking in on Dez.
Right.
Red zone 16 touchdown guarantee situation anymore. So I think that's why there's hesitation. Overall, I agree with your take, but I think that's the reason why is because the injuries mixed with the new quarterback, mixed with the change in offensive philosophy from when he was a 16 touchdown guy.
Well, remember when it was DeMarco Murray's team?
Yeah.
And DeMarco Murray touched the ball more than any man in the history of the world.
I believe that was the 16 touchdown season.
Yeah, that was Dez Bryant was still elite.
That was the 16 touchdown year?
I can confirm that right now. I'm trying to pull it all up. But I'm saying so DeMarco Murray, I'm looking at 2013. It was 2014 when Murray just fully exploded. Okay. So 2014, DeMarco Murray was the number 1 wide receiver. Let's find out where
Wow, he's a wide receiver that year?
Running back. And Dez Bryant's number 4.
Sure.
He was the number 4 wide receiver.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I
was 2 years younger back then.
it's fine.
No,
it's
I
fine if
agree
it's the
with you. I agree
Ezekiel
with you.
Elliott show because that's why I like Dak is the efficiency like Tony Romo had.
All right, we gotta cruise through these. We got a bunch more.
Oh, I ain't cruising through this next one.
Well, I just
You're
mean
cruising for
maybe
a
our diagnosis.
I'm cruising with the top down, strolling down Central. I don't know. I don't know what the kids did in the 50s.
They did a lot of strolling. Yeah.
All right. Here's a guy that there's going to be a huge overreaction to. Way too big an overreaction. And that is last year's my guy, John Brown. John Brown is a guy that right now is borderline undrafted in some mocks. He's going after the 12th round. You're talking about a guy that is a throwaway piece. He has already had in his sophomore year over 1,000 yards receiving, and then this where I was calling for the breakout, he was terrible. He had an awful season. 500 yards was barely not there, and you look at the game logs and you go, he played. Do you know how many games he played last year?
If I had to guess, I'm going to guess 12.
12,
13?
13. I was thinking around the same, probably like, 10. He played 15 games last year.
Yeah, but
He played basically the whole season.
But he only officially missed one.
Right. And so people are going to overreact and say that it was something that it wasn't, which here's what it was. It was the sickle cell trait that developed in him. He was on the injury report almost every week as hamstring, even though they took the MRIs. Hamstring was fine. That's when they took the blood work and found out it was the sickle cell issue. I went down and I looked at the snap counts through the entire 2015 year and the entire 2016 year for John Brown. In 2015, his sophomore season, he played over 80% of the snaps the whole season long. There were only 2 games where he was even under 70% snap count. But last year, while they were dealing with the sickle cell trait, he played in 50% of snaps. He basically, you're not having a fantasy wide receiver other than Tyreek Hill who doesn't play half of the snaps on offense. And when you listen to so Michael Bidwell, Cardinals owner, has come out and talked about how healthy John Brown is now. They've got it completely under control. He looks like the same John Brown. Bruce Arians has come out, and you want to know how he talks about last year? He said, well, yeah, we were missing 1,000 yards off of our offense. And he was referring to John Brown's 1,000 yards from his sophomore year. And he's saying that he wants him back, like to his form. So John Brown's going to come back. Carson Palmer's back. If you're talking about a guy I'm getting in the 12th round, do not overreact to John Brown's sickle cell trait that said he's not playing in half of the games. And when he is, he didn't look the same on film. He even said that.
What I like about John Brown is by the time his draft season, I don't expect a 12th round for him, but I expect 7th, 8th round for a guy who can be a high-level wide receiver too and give you explosive wide receiver 1 games. So I'm with this. I agree that the Cardinals offense will be back. I considered going with Carson Palmer because when you look at his numbers, it feels like there's just one thing.
John Brown missing.
There's one thing missing, and it's John Brown from 2 years ago. So I like this. John Brown is a guy who I will be targeting, and I know I can wait on him for a little bit and get a extreme value.
And he will not, just so you're aware, he will not be sneaking up in the 7th or 8th round next year. That's where Golden Tates are going. And
there's a pretty good chance the Cardinals draft a wide receiver, and so that would only add to the fact that he's not going to creep up into the radar. So it's certainly a value and a low-risk value at that. All right, it's my turn. It seems like this is going to be the off-season
Are you
reframe.
sure about this?
I am. Although I did ask myself that question last night when I was preparing for the show. Look, for me, the overreaction that I think people need to avoid is the Todd Gurley overreaction. This is DeMarco Murray from 2015. This is a painful, visceral feeling that owners of Todd Gurley had last year because you were expecting what people expected from DeMarco Murray when he landed in Philadelphia, which is the sun, the moon, and the stars, and
the number 1 running back.
And you got dirty mud. You got junk. And so, look, last year, I make no bones about it. Terrible, awful, ridiculously bad year for Todd Gurley, who still ended up as number 12. Okay, that's the context.
Number 12.
I love Michael Keaton.
What was he? 21.
I think
he's 21.
I'll bet that.
But here's the story, in my opinion, with Todd Gurley. I believe the truth of Todd Gurley is a lot closer to 2015 when he was the 3rd leading rusher in the league. And I think last year, look, we know the big storyline. The big storyline is Sean McVay has arrived. And more than that, Jeff Fisher has left. Okay, Jeff Fisher is gone. But I want a guy. Give me the guy with the 4th most snaps at running back in the league. Give me a guy who's becoming more of a factor in the passing game to the tune of doubling his reception total between 2015 and 2016. Give me a guy with a higher percentage of his red zone carries than any other running back in the league. Give me a fresh offensive-minded coach and the ability to use a guy who – this is not a last-round pick. This is a first-round talent with first-round pedigree who's already done it in the NFL, albeit last year was a struggle. Last year he was hit in the backfield faster than just about anybody in the league, and I think he tried to do too much. There was no threat in the passing game. There was no threat elsewhere other than blocking, than breaking through the line and hitting Todd Gurley. So to me, you're not taking this guy ahead of David Johnson, Lev Bell, Zeke, LaShawn McCoy. But don't overreact. Don't have that inflammatory emotional response in fantasy football to the poop fest that was last year, because To me, he can only get better. That's my opinion. I think the improvement in that offense says Todd Gurley has the ability and talent to be a top 5 guy. And so to me, I think the reaction is going to be very visceral. I think you're going to see it. So I think there are people that will literally say, I will not draft Todd Gurley under any circumstances. And that's the mistake I think people need to avoid.
Yeah, I'm anti-Todd Gurley of the three of us, but I would not take that position where I'm not going to draft him under any circumstance. Like you said, he was in standard RB20, in PPR RB15 last year, and that was the quote-unquote putrid year. So, I agree with some of what you're saying. That being said, I don't think their offensive line is going to be fixed. I don't think the offense is going to be good. The main problems that held him back will repeat. So I see him as kind of that RB11.
Yeah, another factor of me, or for me when I'm talking about Todd Gurley, is we brought this stat up, the Lord Reeves stat, where he was talking about the 4 games where he exploded and then just ever since has really floundered. I mean, that rookie season, when people fell in love with Todd Gurley, I think you're a little bit just looking at the end result and not remembering what happened. I mean, after those 4 games, he was kept alive by touchdowns for fantasy purposes, and that's well and great. But if the offense is not moving, if Jared Goff cannot get this offense moving, Todd Gurley, I mean, he was just 24 for 89. That included an overtime. So 3.7, 3.8, 2.6, 2.1. I mean, this was the rookie year. This wasn't last year. So it's not like the last year's season is the only thing that has a negative impact on where I view Todd Gurley for fantasy purposes. And while I agree with Andy, you can't overreact too much to what happened last year. One of the worst things you can do for fantasy football is have 1 year and just completely write a guy off. It will destroy you.
You know what's funny? And we'll transition into your pick now. What's funny is that both your pick and Todd Gurley referred to last year as a nightmare. That was their actual quotes.
Right.
They both said a nightmare season. So talk about
and what's funny is Gurley was an RB2. This guy was a QB1.
Yeah, okay. So I'll give everyone just a moment.
Who's your nightmare, Mike?
I'm going to give everyone a moment. If you're eating, swallow the bite. You don't want to have anything in your mouth. Do not
Maybe spit it out just so you don't have anything in your stomach.
If you're standing up, operating heavy machinery, just go ahead and give a little bit of a break. All right, here we go.
I hope we have a lot of listeners operating heavy machinery. I think we got like the highest populace of crane operators listening to fantasy football.
Here we go. Blake Bortles. And
your face is so great.
My first note is, yes, gross.
Okay, all right.
I get it. But Blake Bortles in 2015 was the quarterback 4. In 2016, he was the quarterback 9. He was a top 10 quarterback who is being drafted as the 21st quarterback right now. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Also known as not drafted.
Yeah, you could pick him up off the waiver wire if drafts were going on right now. And look, he had some stinkers, but for the most part, you could see these coming. By my calculations, the way I'm looking at this, he had 6 games where you're going, okay, you didn't give me enough. You gave me under 15 points. But 3 of those, Houston, Denver, Baltimore. You could have seen that coming a mile away with Blake Bortles. You think, okay, well, here's a great defense. I'm not going to play him. Allen Robinson, I think the play was more of Blake Bortles, but Allen Robinson fell apart. Allen Hurns was injured. I mean, he was a huge factor.
He basically had a non-year.
Right, in 2015 as a dynamic deep threat. Blake Bortles was a top 12 quarterback 6 times last year, and people are saying, oh, it's just disgusting. I cannot have this guy on my team. So all I'm saying is, if you like to wait on quarterback like me, don't write off Blake Bortles as saying, well, 11 people have quarterbacks. I'm just going to hang out. I'm going to pull up my recliner, and I'm going to grab Blake Bortles, and I'll have someone else to fill in when he plays against a good defense. But Blake Bortles has been quarterback 1 for 2 years in a row.
All right.
You may resume operating heavy machinery and eating.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to.
I know.
That's all it is.
I know.
I just don't want to. I got better things to do with my life than
totally
draft
get
or
it.
sign Blake Bortles.
I totally get it.
But you're right.
If you can grab Blake Bortles at the last pick and pair him with someone, that get like your two quarterbacks, you're going to be just fine.
Yeah, there's a morale defeating aspect. When you start Blake Bortles against somebody and he scores garbage time points against them, it's demoralizing for them.
The thing, when you're drafting Blake Bortles and you're doing it this year, you got to own it. You got to beat that chest, maybe, pop the top button off of the shirt, put the collar up, put on your sunglasses, and be like, Blake Bortles, deal with it, suckers.
Yeah.
You do. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to do it or not.
All
Jason,
right.
It's your turn.
Yeah, now that everybody's operating the heavy machinery, I'll talk about a guy that people love, and we have loved for years, that I think that's going to be overreaction to his performances last year, and that's Mr. Zeus, Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce finished as the #1 tight end this last year. And,
decent.
Very similar to Matt Ryan in the sense that he was a #1 finisher who's now being drafted in the 4th round for a position in fantasy football where you only need one guy every week, one starter, and in most leagues. And so Travis Kelce right now is actually the 2nd drafted tight end behind Gronk. He's going ahead of, Greg Olsen. He's going ahead of Jordan Reed. He's going ahead of a lot of guys. And don't get me wrong, just like Matt Ryan, I think Travis Kelce will be fine. He'll have a good year. He's improved the previous 3 seasons every single year. He's going to be just fine. But just fine is not worth a 4th round pick. He was the #1 tight end this year, and he had 7 games. He was the #1. 7 times this year, he did not finish as a top 15 tight end.
That's gross.
The offense just isn't powerful enough to say, I'm going to take the guy, I only get to play one guy every week. I would rather stream that position and fill in my running backs and wide receivers with a great, give me Doug Baldwin in the 4th when I've got to play 3 wide receivers every single week. And I'll take, a couple of late round, give me Fedorowicz or something. I just think people are overreacting to Travis Kelce. Last year, he was a 7th round pick. If you can get the #1 tight end in the 7th round, that's great.
And just a reminder, his last year's season, in 2015, he would have been the tight end 6.
That's the most compelling argument for me.
And in 2014, he would have been the tight end 4. So, these are the #1 is bright. It's very, very shiny.
Yep.
But
the value later on in the draft might get you almost the same production.
Right. Well, I think it's more indicative of how bad the tight end position was as a whole last year.
Totally agree. We talked about Blake Bortles. I'm going to give you my last overreaction candidate. And this is the guy I can deal with. All right. I can push the draft button on this guy, and it's Andy Dalton. It's Andy Dalton. It's my namesake. It's my fellow Andy. All right. Are you ready? Are you ready for this? Look, Andy Dalton has the potential, in my opinion, to be one of the best values at the quarterback position. Jason is holding Andy Dalton up next to my face. And it looks great. I'm happy to be in the picture with Andy Dalton. Look, I think he is going to end up as one of my guys for next year. That's an early candidate for me because let me make the case to you. The overreaction, the pulse of Andy Dalton is that he had a bad year, okay?
The pulse is that he's never, ever been a good fantasy quarterback, despite that not being true.
It's completely untrue. He didn't have a bad year. Depending on your scoring system, he finished between 12 and 14 at the position, okay? This is a year where he lost Marvin Jones and Mohamed Sanu. He lost A.J. Green to injury during the season. He lost Tyler Eifert for the majority of the year. He lost Gio Bernard out of the backfield, and he had a pathetic, maybe half-injured Jeremy Hill navigating the running game. It was the rookie year for Tyler Boyd. And so this is the situation, and he still finished as a QB1 in standard leagues. Let me remind people, he is 1 year removed from ending up the 4th. He was the number 4 overall quarterback from weeks 1 through 13 in 2015.
But Andy, in 2015, he finished like quarterback 18.
I know, voice of public opinion. But he was actually injured in week 13. And so from weeks 1 to 13, he was number 4.
That's pretty good.
Can you believe that?
Yeah, I can because I love Andy Dalton.
And has he done it before? Oh, wait. 2013, he was the number 5 overall quarterback. So he's done it before. And so you've got 2 years of being a top 5 quarterback, and he's set up, in my opinion, to be an absolute bargain at the position. I love him. I think he's this year's Matt Ryan or Matt Stafford, however you want to look at it. Maybe not Matt Ryan. I don't think he can be the number 1 quarterback, number 2 quarterback, but he can be a top 5 guy. And he's going to have – this team might – we were talking before the show, Jason. This team might draft a Mike Williams.
Yeah.
This team might draft another big piece to be opposite of A.J. Green, who's coming back. Eifert will be healthy. You know what Eifert did in the red zone for that team.
Yeah, he's the 17th drafted quarterback right now, which is
gross.
Exactly why you do not need to draft Matt Ryan in the 4th round.
Yeah, give me Andy Dalton as my starting quarterback. I'd be fine with it.
All right, my final overreaction in shutting down the show. I'm looking into my crystal ball, and I am predicting.
Is it Batman Begins?
What?
Oh, I thought your overreaction was Batman Begins. We had this discussion the other day about how I think it's a terrible movie that's been like.
Shame.
I know. You cannot push a button. You can't push a button on your boot and have bats come and have me like you as a movie.
Batman Begins is it's like saying Blake Bortles was just absolutely awful. You had a couple blemishes. And you're right in the whole entire thing.
So Batman
off.
Begins is the Blake Bortles
Don't
of
do
the
that,
NFL.
Mike.
Well done. Thank you. I feel great about my Batman Begins comments.
Look,
I know
Batman
people
Begins,
like it.
It's okay.
Sorry,
it has some moments.
I got your overreaction wrong.
The Tennessee Titans are going to make a move, maybe 2 moves, at the wide receiver position. Can you name me some wide receivers from the Tennessee Titans of note?
Rishard Matthews.
Yes.
Tajay Sharp.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Harry Douglas.
Delaney Walker.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have Harry Douglas. They traded away Dorial Green Beckham. Kendall Wright is going to be on the outs. I want to talk about Rishard Matthews, who is going to be a forgotten man in drafts. Weeks 8 through 17, he was the wide receiver 7 points per game. Number 7. And you think, well, what happened to Rishard Matthews in the first half of the season? They signed him as a free agent. I have to remind you, Andre Johnson was on that team. You guys remember that? Do you remember that?
Yeah,
Andre Johnson.
Yeah, he was.
And I don't blame the Titans. They had an opportunity to pick up a probably first ballot Hall of Fame wide receiver and say, well, is there anything left? And they gave him some play. It did not work out. In weeks 1 through 7, Rishard Matthews had to split time with Andre Johnson. And if you go up and you look about how Rishard Matthews felt about that, he was a little bit disappointed.
Yeah, that's rough.
He was quite angry. So weeks 1 through 7, Rishard Matthews, 52% of snaps. We just talked about
that's
a
never gonna get
halftime
it
player
done.
is not going to get it done for fantasy purposes. Weeks 8 through 17, 90%.
Oh, that's better.
Once he became a full-time player, he became great for fantasy purposes. He was tied for 7th in red zone receptions, despite being 24th in red zone targets, because Mariota, a beast in the red zone, and Rishard Matthews is a huge part of that. 9 touchdowns, almost 1,000 yards, when he, to me, basically played half of a season as a starter. I mean, it was a great year for Rishard Matthews. He's currently the 34th wide receiver in fantasy football calculator drafts. He's going to be overlooked. People aren't going to want him. People are going to want Tajay Sharp over Rishard Matthews, and I think that's going to be a mistake to let Matthews go in those later rounds as an ultimate value for your team.
I will admit when I'm wrong about somebody, and I think I was wrong about Rishard Matthews as a talent. He showed me something in those last 8 games. He showed me something. He's a playmaker, and you certainly love the fact he's growing with Mariota.
He still carries the stink of that 7th round draft pick.
If they draft a big name guy, what happens to Rishard Matthews' ADP? I mean,
it will go down even more, in my opinion.
Where is he at right now?
He's the 34th wide receiver off the board.
That's sad.
Low-end wide receiver 3.
Kind of reminds me of like the Doug Baldwin situation last
Yes.
year. You can have a good second half. You can win people fantasy leagues, but you can still be ushered off into the closet.
Yeah.
and forgotten because your name isn't as illustrious yet. So And the offense, again, an offense that revolves around the running game.
Yeah, you think, it's
Power
a
running
running
game.
offense. There's no fantasy wide receivers for me to have on this team.
All right, hope you enjoyed our 9 overreaction picks. Definitely come join us at jointhefoot.com, our fantasy community. You'll get access to footclanleagues.com, which is awesome. It's a great way to join a league with really good players. I was just talking to somebody the other day that was in the studio, and he's in 3 leagues, but he said they all kind of suck.
Right.
That's exactly what his words were, because he said there are like 2 or 3 guys in each league that pretty much don't pay attention for the whole year, and they're just dead teams, and it's like
That ruins a league.
it ruins a league. So go find some good players. If you need someone to play with, local leagues, online leagues, you can do all of that at jointhefoot.com. We want to invite you to join us this offseason. It's going to be a lot of fun.
And you get our extra episode every week, which you want to talk fun? You want to talk fun? Off-season Footcast on Thursdays?
Yeah.
That's
And
fun.
You get exclusive discounts on not only footballer gear, but maybe the ultimate draft kit.
Definitely.
Hopefully you enjoy. Hey, and if you want to see the new studio, go to YouTube, subscribe to us on there. Thank you for tuning in today. We will be back again on Thursday with more goodness for your 2017 fantasy football draft
And
prep.
a shout-out, happy birthday to our man Brooks.
Brooks in the building. See you next time.
See ya.
Check out fantasyjocks.com if you need a trophy.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.